Hello!
Hello.
Everybody.
I just landed an amazing "That's what she said," so that's why I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat.
And you know what else she said? She said, respect my boundaries.
I did say that.
Oh, did you?
I I
Oh, I
I,
was using
I
the.
did way before. That's what she said.
Did you say that to me?
No,
You don't. You didn't tell me to respect your boundaries?
no, I think I said that when I walked in. I said that to your dogs. Your
Oh,
dogs were not
yeah.
respecting
My
my
dogs need to
boundaries.
respect people's boundaries.
They don't, but they're really cute.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody, we're just sort of kicking things off very slowly in our ethereal, empty space right now.
We could be anywhere.
We could be anywhere.
Anywhere.
We're here today to talk about a set of boundaries that a lot of people don't or have trouble setting, which is platonic boundaries. So not all boundaries have to do with your sexual relationship. A lot of them have to
No.
do with family,
Friends,
friends,
workplaces, acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many opportunities to practice and enforce your own boundaries.
Yeah. And we wanted to do this episode because everybody's getting together for the holidays, and this may be the one time that you actually see your family or your friend or certain friends all year. And if you're seeing people once a year, they tend to probe.
Into the deepest parts of your life, whether or not you want them to.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people go back to visit family, we can fall into these old patterns that have been set for decades that when you stop to think about it, it turns out you don't really enjoy them.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a bummer.
I was actually just listening to you earlier today, and I wanted to kind of throw this out into the space because I thought it was a great way of phrasing things. There are, where is it? I wrote it down. Oh, it's possible not to respect your own boundaries.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah. And what that means is sort of we step into these spaces where we start saying yes to friends or family or to work when we absolutely do not want to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And and it may even just be that they're not coercing us. They may just ask. They just may ask one time and we go,
Yes,
I
of
don't.
course.
Yeah, I don't want to say no, and so I'm gonna not respect my own boundaries and limits, and I'm going to, in that way, do it to myself. And the reason why I phrase it that way is because people are allowed to ask you things.
Absolutely.
They're like, "Hey, do you want to come home for Christmas?"
Yes, but understand that even though you may have in your head some really good reasons for saying yes, you have, in asking you, they are trusting you to tell them the truth a lot
Yeah.
of the time. And they might as well not even ask if you're not going to give an honest question. I understand that isn't true of everybody. Some people do ask with the intention of putting pressure on you.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the time, people do genuinely want to know. And you honor yourself by giving an honest but kind answer.
Well, this is also a really important thing. Thank you, Tricks, for saying yes. It is hard, probably the hardest to respect your own boundaries, and this is something. And I know we're not talking about the sort of sex and relationship space today. We're sticking with friends and family stuff. There are times where somebody asks us to do something, we don't respect our own boundaries, and then later on we go, "Oh, that person didn't respect my boundaries. They got me to do something that I didn't really want to do." And
How dare they? I'm building up all of this resentment towards that person when it could have been avoided if I had spoken the truth.
Yeah, it's not true. I remember very distinctly I was grabbing drinks with somebody who I had an intimate situation with before, and I was just planning on grabbing drinks, and she brought up in the conversation, I was expecting this evening to turn into something else. And in that moment, I was like, I feel bad, which I shouldn't have. And then I was like, okay,
What would you like me to
let's go back to my place and we'll do this in that exact tone.
Do you
like
ever-
like
Do you ever want someone saying, "Yeah, let's go back to my place" in the most bummed out tone possible? That sounds awful.
it was, and she was like, okay, and I was like, okay, and
Ugh.
and but the thing is like looking back on the situation, I 100% like should have said no. I didn't want to. I agreed to something that I was not interested in doing, and none of it was her fault.
Yeah,
She
and
was
we've all
super
done it.
operating from the space. Now, granted, she should have maybe taken my unenthusiastic yes as a
Absolutely, she
no.
should.
She should have taken my okay, fine as a maybe I shouldn't do this. But that's not the headspace that they were in at the time. Anyway, respecting our own boundaries is really hard, and
It's made exponentially harder around long established relationships, especially around family, because I think there's sort of this general understanding or convincing of people that, oh, well, don't worry about it. They're family. Why are you saying this? They're family. And someone being family is just this pass to sometimes treat you
Do
way worse than you would
anything.
accept from anybody else
oh my
because they're
god,
family.
yeah. And there's also, I think, people don't respect their own boundaries with friends because the stakes aren't as high. You know,
Mm.
it's like, oh, if I go to this thing that I don't want to go to, what's the big deal? What's the real harm that's being done to me? Um, and the answer is just like you're not prioritizing yourself, and then you're losing.
Respect for yourself.
Not like that you're necessarily losing respect for yourself, but like, you know, maybe this is just a big thing about getting older is like your time becomes more precious, not because you're about to die, but because you've acknowledged that like I don't want to give my time away to anything that's not rejuvenating.
Yeah,
Uh,
because when you've spent many years doing that, you eventually run out of space.
I've gone to enough of these parties to know I don't like these parties, or like
I don't like these
or like
people.
I don't like these people, or I don't like this person's friends, or whatever. And you can say no just because you don't want to. You don't have to go, oh, I'm busy that night, or oh,
You don't have to make an excuse to say no.
and that feels
Terrifying.
terrifying.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, yeah,
But you can just say, I'm sorry, I can't.
yeah.
That's it.
And then
That's
wave
it.
and then
You
wave
can
your
do the same thing at
hands.
work. I know there's an urge that every time you ask for your legally mandated that you have it
Oh.
part-time off, that there's always sort of a need to like give an excuse, so you like you're still a team player, you only do this in the gravest of conditions, but you're allowed to say, I won't be in tomorrow, I need to take a personal day. And nobody has really a right to probe you about that because it's a personal day for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, so much of the industry, this reminds me of this great Lorne Michaels story, which I've talked about on another show. So Lorne Michaels, when he first was doing SNL, he obviously loved the show. He wanted to make it better. And he went to the studio and he said, hey, you know, I'm going to need more money or I'm going to walk. And the studio was like, okay, you can quit. And he's like, really? He's like, I'm just trying to make the show better. And their response was, oh, we didn't ask you to make the show better.
Oh, shit.
The only thing that we asked you to do was to make a show that costs X number of dollars. You're the one that has
Wow.
decided to put all this work into it. You're the one that has decided to like put all this passion and extra hours and all these things into it. We just want a show that costs this much money and happens X number of days.
Oh.
And that's something that we all do to ourselves. And I take a lot of pride in my work. If there's anything that yes, it's very much like the people above G4. It's people in every industry. Like if you're someone that takes pride in your work, it's got your name on it. And so I don't want to put anything out there that has my name on it that I'm not like, sure, I'm in an experimental phase with certain things, but like I'll put my thumb stamp on it.
Yeah, but the people above you, it's not their job to make sure you respect yourself. It's their job to hit a bottom line.
It's not their job to make you respect yourself. Quote that Put it on a fucking t-shirt. That's another great quote. We got another thing that we're going to talk about today in terms of how you handle these situations, and I've broke it down into like a 3-tiered system, which is step 1, talking it out. Conversations always good. Step 2, taking timeouts. I love things that kind of rhyme or go together, which is
great.
like, hey, you and I are going to take a break for a while, whether that's friends, family, or work. And then the third one is cutting the cord. I couldn't think of something that fit in the trio. Cutting cord is like a final severing of the relationship. Do you have one?
Fucking off is the closest I have.
It's not.
It's
does not
accurate. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna answer Sidetrix because we're actually gonna transition to family. Sidetrix asks, "How do you fight the guilt trips that relatives give you? Like, our mom or dad wants you to do a thing during holidays when you just want to get together and not be free labor."
Yeah, because having Christmas a certain way or having the holidays a certain way is a priority of somebody else, but it's not a priority of you. But because it's for you, you're obligated to help create this vision.
Yeah. Here's a crazy thing that we're gonna put out there. And do not say this to your family. This is not where you open with. This is the nuclear option. Once you've like talked it out in a bunch of like other more helpful ways. But as children, and this is true across the board, children don't owe their parents anything.
It was not your choice to be brought into this world. It was your parents' choice. You don't owe them a specific career or life path. You don't owe them having the kind of personality they want you to have. Life is something that they decided to give you.
Yeah.
You don't owe them anything. And I know that sounds crazy. I fed you, I raised you, I did this. Yeah, well, that was your choice. That was your choice.
Yeah.
And you don't get points for meeting the bare legal minimum requirements of parenting.
So again, that's the nuclear option. That's the last thing that you would say. Coming up to the forefront, Sidetrix, I'd put this out to you. It depends on what the guilt trip is about. You know, my mom would give me guilt trips all the time. That was her tool that she had. And the whole thing about guilt that is sort of like the tactical like Taekwondo or Aikido way of fighting that is that you just put it down. My mom would be like, "Oh, you know, fine, go hang out with your friends and don't stay here." And I would say, "Okay." Yeah. And I was like, "You told me to do it." And the thing is like, if you're not going to be direct with me about your boundaries, I'm gonna set my boundaries, and then like you get to react to my boundaries however you want to. But like, I don't have to. That was my dad, and I just declined the call. Boundaries. Doing a show right now. It also depends on like your individual relationship with your family and the conversations you've had. Have you been up until this point pretending like everything is okay? Or have you made it clear multiple times that like when we get together for the holidays, these are things I'm interested in doing and these are things I'm not interested in doing? That's sort of step 1. You just have to be like, "Hey, I'm not about this. When we get together on the holidays, this part I love." I had to tell my parents when we get together, if when I see them on the holidays, because I don't. I have told them all, sitting together and watching TV is not spending time together.
And it's not something that's meaningful or fulfilling for me.
Yeah. So I've actually had to tell my mom multiple times. I went and visited her when she was living in South Carolina, and she was like, "Hey, I would love to go walk around the botanical gardens that are there." And I was like, "I fucking hate that. I hate gardens. I don't like walking around farmers markets. It's very stressful for me." And then she brought it up the next day, and she's like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, No. I couldn't be more clear. that I'm not interested in going. And she's like, well, I would really like to go. And I was like, okay, I will go with you. And I'm also going to tell you, I'm going to have a terrible time. And when I'm walking around this space being angry, don't ask me why I'm upset. We went to the botanical garden. I had a terrible time. And she was like, what's wrong? Are you not having fun? And I was like, I fucking told you. I told you what my boundaries were. I told you how I feel about this space. You decided to do this anyway. And with all the knowledge, and I agreed to it. I told you what the experience was going to be like. And then that's the experience you signed up for. So if you're having that conversation with your parents, you can say, hey, I'm down to come. If you make me do labor, this is going to be the results. I might do the labor if I feel like allowing, it's up to me. If I feel like allowing that to happen, I'm going to make it miserable.
Now, I also feel like that there was space in that conversation, and I don't know if you did or not, you may have, but a lot of times when someone says, oh, will you come help me with something, or will you come do this thing with me? It is because they want to do it, but I think oftentimes the priority is trying to find some kind of connection. Sometimes I feel like, especially like parents that maybe you don't like totally get along with all the time, but you love them, they know that. Like they know that you know when you're not clicking with somebody, and it's a bummer when the person you're not clicking with is your mom or dad.
Yeah.
And often I think that comes out of a place of wanting to connect. So I think in that moment, you could just say no. You could say yes. You could say no. You could say no and explain why. Or you could say no, explain why, and then say, you know what I would like to do? Would you care to join me on any of these things? Because you know what this makes me feel? This makes me feel good and connected to people when I do this thing. I think a lot of the times that's what people are really reaching for, is like feeling connected to family, because often that's what the holidays are all about, is the family love. I totally understand that sitting around and watching TV with family is not a method of connection for you. It's not a method of connection for me either. Now, there's a difference in sitting around watching TV and like, oh my God, we haven't seen this movie in forever. Let's watch it together. No, we've all seen it before, so we can still like make jokes and chat in between.
Yeah.
Those are two very different scenarios. And so often, I think one of the ways that you can get out of the things you don't want to do is to offer alternatives.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and then coming back to your point about the connection, and this is something that is true both about families, friends, and intimate relationships. What was happening in my mom's space was, and sometimes our parents are not used to talking about these things, so they might not have the words to articulate them. My mom wanted to connect with me in this particular way.
Yeah.
And she had an idea in her head of how it was going to go. And she wanted me to want to go to the garden.
And we've talked about both of those things before. Setting up expectations and a scene in your head that has nothing to do with the other person's input, and also wanting somebody else to feel a certain way, to have a certain emotional reaction. It's an unrealistic and very unfair expectation.
And so one way to handle this, in addition to the steps that we've already talked about, if you reflect back to people the thing that that they can't quite articulate. So if I said to my mom, which I may have, if I said to her, hey, I get that you really want to connect with me by walking around the garden, and like that's what you want out of this day. I understand that this is something that's important to you, and like you want to share that with me. That being said, I need to add that like that circumstance isn't true for me.
That scene
that you've painted in your head is not real for me. And I cannot make myself want to go to the gardens. Having those guilt trip conversations with families is really about us navigating and understanding each other's ways in which we want to connect with each other.
And also, you don't have to put the emphasis on like, this is what you don't understand about me, or like, I acknowledge that you have this thing set up in your head. It can sound something more like, Mom, I really want to spend quality time with you while I'm here. And that's not the best way for me to do it. I love doing this or this or this. Do you think we could spend time together doing any of these things? Because again, I really do want to spend time with you while I'm here. I miss you. Like just the smallest
Mm.
bit of like acknowledging the thing that they're looking for, acknowledging that like they love you and miss you, or at the very least they want some kind of positive feedback from this relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of times giving people a little bit of what they want will help get them off your back a little bit.
And that's also another strategy that we've talked about on the show before, which is sort of, moderating your ask. So in that situation, I could have been like, hey, is it possible to just go for like 15 minutes or
Yeah.
like 30 minutes knowing that there's an out? I can show up for you in these parameters for 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
I can't do a day or half a day.
Yeah. My dad would love nothing more than if during a visit I would go for a run with him. My dad is a huge runner, a huge biker. He loves nothing more than going on absurdly long runs and bike rides, and it would make his life if I did that with him once. I hate running. Running is not for me. I am a dance and yoga person. But
I felt your snaps in your head saying that.
But here's what I will do. I will go on a hike. I'll go on a walk. I'll do something that is not going to put me in a miserable place, but still is addressing the thing he wants to do, which is stay active, because my dad cannot sit down for more than 30 minutes at a time. And just because I know that's what he would really like doesn't mean I need to put myself in a place of extreme discomfort to make it happen. And ironically enough, I learned that lesson from my dad. My mom is the kind of person that's always like, I'll do whatever the group wants to do. I don't have any needs or wants. And my dad is the one who makes no secret about what he likes to do and what he wants to do. And he says, I'm going to do this. Anyone in the group who wants to do this is welcome to join me. So I think that was the lesson I took. I said, okay, so it's okay to say what I want. And saying what I want is an invitation for people to come with me, is an opening for people to connect with me.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be authentic about that.
I love it. These are all tools for visiting your family. Also I'll add don't be afraid to invite your family to share in the things that you really love. That's
Yeah.
part of the ways that we find to connect with people, especially if we don't see them.
Tradition.
Oh my God,
New
please.
traditions start all the time. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So one of the other things we want to talk about boundary wise is body autonomy
Ooh.
when it comes to spending time with family. Now I know this has been like a big topic of conversation in the parenting community about not making your kids hug everybody.
Go kiss grandma.
Yeah.
But what if I don't want to? Doesn't matter. Actually, it does. Because you know what lesson that reinforces from an early age? What you want doesn't matter, and you don't get to make decisions about your own body.
Yeah. I've worked a lot in the education space. I've through elementary ages and like middle school, and high school, I guess all the ages, but a lot of elementary school. And, one of the things that I try to get parents to understand is that kids are, and this is going to sound weird, they're just people. They're people
But smaller.
and they don't have as many tools. And one of the things about their entire experience of the world is they have say over very little. Period.
Very
They
little
don't
control over
decide when they go to
anything.
the bed. They don't decide where they eat. They decide almost nothing for themselves. And there's a lot of what ends up happening when you are the adult in the situation is, man, raising kids, exhausting. You only have so much bandwidth, and we would all be the best parents in the world if we were incredibly well rested, had all the energy in the world, had
And
all
all
the
the money
time
in the
and all the
world.
money in the world and all the time in the world to explain every single thing. So, one of my favorite examples is when you're doing. I'm not gonna say negative because it's not. It's negative energy to reinforce something. So negative energy is a lot of energy quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Positive energy is slow energy that draws people towards you.
Mm.
Negative energy stops things. Lots of energy. Positive energy draws things to you slowly. So let's say you've got a kid that's jumping on the couch. Your immediate response could just be like, "No, get the fuck off that couch," without saying the fuck. No, get off the couch.
I mean, I would probably
So
say it.
so in that space, yes, a lot of energy. You have temporarily fixed the situation, but they haven't learned anything.
They haven't learned anything. And also, kids are like dogs in the sense that it's a lot easier to teach a dog to do something than to stop doing something.
Right, because here's the big thing. Jumping on the couch is fun.
Yeah.
It's still fun. And even though you said no, it hasn't changed the relationship to them and the couch.
It hasn't changed the reward they get from jumping on the couch.
Right. It's only made them better at avoiding you in that situation. Now, nobody's perfect. The positive, more energy consuming experience is to say, hey, listen, we're going to have a conversation about jumping on the couch. Jumping on the couch is super fun. Part of the reason why I don't want you to jump on the couch is because it leads to potentially all these things. Also, these couches cost money. We only have this couch, and but it's like you end up having a very long conversation, which draws out the relationship. It's not like, are there circumstances? Can we do other things with our energy? You can
Redirection.
Yeah, redirection.
Redirection. So
All of that is to say that when we're dealing with any of our relationships and setting these boundaries, there is the quick response of no, don't touch me. And then there is actually the response that costs you a little bit more energy to do, but is hey, I don't feel comfortable hugging anymore or getting close to this particular family member anymore. This has made me feel uncomfortable in XYZ ways.
And so that's when we offer alternatives, right?
Yeah.
Because you do get to decide who touches your body. But
I was that robot. My friend's
yeah,
kid
can you imagine?
looked so relieved when I told them you don't have to hug me if you don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when they do hug you, that's
It
great.
It means so
something.
much more. And I understand you can't ignore people. You have to acknowledge people.
I disagree.
No. I'm sorry, but when you walk into a family circumstance, if that's not a person that's been hurtful,
Sure.
I do think you need to teach. Yes, we need to acknowledge and greet people because otherwise it's very hurtful. Otherwise, do you want people ignoring you when they walk into a room? Are you really saying you think it's okay to walk into a room of family members and have no acknowledgement whatsoever? Because I would love to you can give them a hug, you can give them a high five, a wave, or you can just say hello. But you do have to acknowledge people.
You can stop at hello, though.
What do you mean stop?
You can say hello and move on.
Sure, yeah. You don't need to enter into a conversation, but acknowledging somebody's presence in a private space, especially when it's people that know each other.
Yeah.
Come on. I do think there is something to be said for that.
Well, I'm examining sort of my thought process and relationship with it, because I'm not saying that it's just ignore people and purposefully avoid somebody. I also am saying that you can be in a space and you don't have to seek out making that connection or acknowledging that they're in that space.
No, what I mean is when someone comes up
If
to
you-
you that
if-
you know and says
No,
hi,
but that's different. No, but what I'm not imagining somebody's coming up to me and they make direct eye contact and we're staring at each other, that I turn my
that's the
face.
circumstance that I mean. I mean
Right.
when
I'm talking about-
when you're being greeted.
When you're being greeted.
Yeah.
I was thought you were talking about just sort of like stepping into like a family party space that I have to go and acknowledge every person that's in that room
Like right
just
away.
because they're in that room.
No, I'm saying if somebody's coming up to you to have a conversation or to greet you and say hi, you you do need to give some kind of response.
Yeah.
This doesn't count for people on the street. This
No, well, listen. I mean, like this is a really important thing. Like this is what we're here to do, which is to sort of like examine the gray. I acknowledge you, super dark void. Um, you know, I'm putting out there, and this is sort of like why I'm sitting here and thinking about this. Uh, I don't I don't operate from a space that like we feel like we owe anybody anything. The things that I am doing are in good faith, but I don't like. I'm trying to phrase it, and it's not meant even from like being an asshole or from like shunning people. Go ahead. You wanted to say something.
I
Grill me, because I
no,
want to
I'm not
examine my own.
I'm not grilling you. I'm just telling you that I am operating from a space of I need to know what the bare minimum is that has the highest likelihood of keeping me safe. And
Safe in what way? I think that's what's important.
uh safe in not having additional unwanted attention, safe in not sparking someone else's anger
Mm.
at me, aggression at me. And so I'm not saying you need to acknowledge people in public places, but if you are at like a party, if you are somewhere where you have a bunch of family members, like the last thing I want to do is walk in and ignore people and then cause people to like be upset and mad at me and talking to, and all of a sudden all of this energy is taken up by the fact that like I didn't give them the barest little glimmer of acknowledgement. And
Oh.
also in situations where I am with strangers, I try not to acknowledge strangers when I pass by them on the street, but sometimes it's just faster and safer to give people a little bit of acknowledgement, give them a little bit of what I know they're looking for, and I have a higher likelihood of going on about my day safely.
See, I'm glad that we're unpacking this, because the reason why I don't feel the need to do that, and Citrix put in like saying a general hi to everybody, I'll do that.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
But I'm never unsafe ignoring somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And like there may be all kinds of people that are talking shit about me. Do not care.
Yeah. I generally don't care what people think about me, but I do have to care whether or not people might be angry at me.
But I want to unpack this though, because, and this is why we're doing this. If somebody was like, Rachel, you didn't say hi to me. You acted as if I wasn't there. What did you do wrong? How would you respond to that person accusing you of slighting them?
I would apologize. If I knew that person already, I would say it wasn't my intention to ignore you.
That's a good one.
Like saying your intention, but that doesn't matter because your feelings are hurt. And I would have liked to acknowledge you. Because you know what? I think there is a space. There's a nice little there's a nice little eclipse in the Venn diagram of enforcing and respecting your own boundaries and understanding manners and norms. Because not all manners and etiquette are good or useful, but a lot of them are. And different cultures have different norms and standards. And we were just talking about this, are you really going to make yourself the main character by completely eschewing a very basic tenet of etiquette and manners?
I think it's the opposite. I'm not making myself a main character at all in that situation because I'm not a part of the story. I'm not better than anybody else. I'm just sort of going about my day and not doing something. And here's what I'll tell you in terms of like the lines. If somebody came up to me and said, "Peter, oh, you didn't say hi to me the other day," my first response would be like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry." Like, you know, that was it. But if they then went another step to try to make me feel bad for not doing it, then I would be like, "Oh, this was a
Well, yeah,
this was a missed thing, and
and
I'm
it's a
not
whole
going to
other
start
and
feeling
it's a whole other
guilty."
thing if somebody like keeps pushing after you acknowledge and apologize and give, just like, "Oh yeah, I you're right. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry." If they keep pushing it after that, that's asshole territory.
There's also somebody said it's the responsibility of the patron entering Super Dark Void. If someone didn't come up and say hi to me, I wouldn't think anything of it. And in this scenario, no one said hi to each other. And so how was anybody at fault?
Yeah, but also this is getting away from us a little bit because when I was talking about kids, I did specifically mention when someone is grieving.
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just once again like the experience of you being in the body you are and me being in the body I am.
Yeah.
It's just two different things when it comes to like awareness of the emotional state of people around us, especially people that could potentially do us harm.
Well, the harm thing is an important thing, and part of the reason why I want to dive into this is like self examination is very important, but we're talking about boundaries, and part of that boundaries gets established, especially in family dynamics, is like what it is that we owe each other. So, for example, my younger brother, and this is I think a lot what I was thinking about when you started talking about this. My younger brother is a piece of shit. He is an awful fucking person who has been terrible to every member of my family. The fact that he is even at the party is offensive to me in every way for the amount of pain that he has caused to everybody. So if I walk into that space, I might go, "Hi," but I feel no obligation to speak to him in any way. I've already drawn a line of like, "Oh, we're not talking."
And I totally understand that, and that context changes it.
For sure. Yeah. But that's like why I think getting into the nitty-gritty of things is like what you were saying is what when we started this conversation, it's like it's a universal that if someone's in the space, you have to acknowledge them.
Well,
And-
I do think that teaching kids standards of behavior
Yeah.
is important and setting that up as the context. Like,
Yeah.
hey, as a general rule, all other context aside, when someone greets you, you have to acknowledge them. And people will expect
Yes.
you to acknowledge them, especially people that you know that are in your family that you've met before. There are additional contexts and additional circumstances that can be piled on top of that might change it. But as a basic, like a jumping off point, right? Because with kids, we need to set a standard. We need to set like these are what numbers are and what they mean. We can't get to math without establishing what numbers are. We can't get to reading without establishing letters. We can't explain context of behavior without setting some basic jumping off points.
Well, so that's why transitioning away from the kids hug space, part of the reason why we're talking about this is that when people are going home, my dad is the reason why my younger brother's at these things is because my dad thinks everybody should be here no matter what has happened. And I don't agree with that. And so there are some people that are going home from the holidays that have that drunk uncle that says a lot of horrible things, or that grandparent that puts pressure on you, or that ... And like you are attempting to navigate a social situation where there are people that you're there to connect with, and there are other people there that you have set firm boundaries with that you do
Absolutely.
not want to connect with.
Absolutely.
And that is the tension, that push and pull that happens at these like very stressful family dynamics.
Yes.
And like, sure, you can say hi, but I don't think that these family members that you have set those boundaries with, like, you owe them anything beyond that.
No, especially not if they've been hurtful.
Right.
I think a lot of this stuff comes off the table when someone has caused you harm.
Yeah.
A lot of these like norms, a lot of these politeness, etiquette, that gets taken off the table if this person has been proven to harm you and be okay with harming you.
Well, let's say you've got a person that's in your space that is like that. You've got that hard boundary and they're pushing on your boundary.
And it happens.
And it happens. And there's a lot of ways to navigate that very challenging conversation. So one thing that you can say, if they come to you and they're like, yo, are you ignoring me? You can, first of all, I'm a big fan of always acknowledging reality. Yes. Yes, I am. And they'd be like, why are you ignoring me? And it's like, well, would you like to go somewhere and talk about it?
Yeah.
Separating yourself outside of like the whole communal family space. I'd be
So
happy.
You don't have to make it.
I'd be
issue.
happy to share with you exactly why I've set this boundary with you. And that's an important thing to state.
Absolutely.
Of like, you know, I'm not ignoring you for fun. I'm
No,
ignoring
this
you
is
because
a conscious decision that
Yeah.
I have made based off of your actions.
for my own personal safety. And then when you get into that conversation, this is sort of like a cliche therapist thing of being like, I'm going to use I statements. I don't feel safe around you. There are things that have happened in the past between us and things that you have said that make me feel this particular way, and I don't want to feel that way anymore. And so I have a boundary. Practice
And-
those phrases.
And they can respect it. They might not, in which case you get to set up a new boundary.
Right?
Which is you don't get to determine what they do or
Yeah.
where they put their body, but you sure as hell get to determine where you put your body and say, you know what? I've asked you several times not to. If you keep talking to me, I'll leave.
There's
And if anyone asks why, I'm happy to tell them. It's because you wouldn't leave me alone. And I don't care whether or not other people might be upset. This isn't fair to me.
Yeah. There's also the negotiating the boundaries of the conversation of I'm happy to talk about it under these circumstances. And if you're willing to hear me without interrupting me,
If you're willing to approach
Blah, blah.
this conversation in good faith.
and then I'll listen to you, but it's not going to be a shouting fest. Before we step into that conversation, do you agree to those parameters of the duel?
To agree to my terms. sir.
Yeah. But that's important because if you're stepping into a space that like people are just going to be coming at you half cocked, reacting and responding to like the firm things that you're saying about like your relationship, you know, you got to set those parameters for your own safety. And also that's the only way the conversation is going to be constructive.
And when you are honest and you set realistic expectations, at that point, you are absolved of any responsibility for the other person's feelings.
Yeah.
I say this is in intimate relationships and friendships and family all the time. If you are honest and communicative and you set realistic expectations, you have no responsibility for how other people feel. This isn't to say that like you're not responsible for other people's feelings, meaning you get to ignore that your actions have
Never.
an impact on
Yeah.
others. But if you are doing these things, if you are offering the situation, then at that point, their reaction is not your business.
Rachel, what if your family starts probing and asking you inappropriately personal questions?
Oh, gosh. One of my favorite responses to that is, why would you ask me that?
Oh, yeah.
Because then you actually make the person think about it for a second. And I think one of the most common
Yeah.
instances this happens around is with couples that are either married or been together a long time or let's say classically heteronormative couples. This happens with a lot. When are you gonna have kids? What's going on? Why haven't you had a baby yet? I think that is a really great example. Or like, hey, so what's going on? You haven't dated anyone since you divorced your wife. You haven't dated anyone since whatever. What's going on with that? I think a way to shut it down is do you think that's an appropriate thing to ask me right now? Why are you asking me that? Because then the person sort of has to like think about what they actually said, right? Because a lot of times, what is the answer? Like, these are really hard answers. Why haven't you had a baby yet? There are a million extremely personal
Mm.
reasons why a couple might not have decided to have a kid, and some of them are pretty emotionally devastating. And like, is
Yeah.
this really the experience you want me to have at this holiday function? There was a very strong boundary that I had to draw with my mom. So I've been with my partner for 8 years. Happily we are expecting now, but my mom wanted a grandkid much earlier than this. Um, I have had an abortion. My mom knows I've had an abortion. And it was getting to the point where every single time we got together, she would say something about, when are my partner and I going to start trying? And eventually, I had to draw the boundary with her and literally lay out, Mom, I had an abortion. Every time you ask me that, it brings up that memory and
Mm.
it's painful for me and it's uncomfortable. And if you continue to bring it up, I'm just going to leave the conversation. It hurts me when you do this and I need you to stop. And there was silence in the car,
Mm.
which with my mom there never is. And it was not an easy thing for me to say, but I was just so over it. It's a very personal decision to have a kid, and it was a decision I was going to make when I was ready, when I wanted to, separate from what anybody else thought or wished. And she did respect it, kind of.
Trying. Yeah.
She was trying. A couple times after that, she would like mention something about it offhand and then go, but I'm not supposed to talk about that, which is like still fucking talking about it, but it was progress.
Well, I also, and we're getting a lot of great things in here. Thank you guys for, we're reading your stuff. I just don't want to keep responding to each one as, because I want to stay focused on certain stuff. Anyway, your why would you ask me that question? I really like that because that opens the door, well, not just for the self examination, but it leads to a conversation that can really help your parents highlight how to support you.
Mm.
So with the like, why aren't you dating right now? And you say, why would you ask me that? They go, well, I'm just curious
Just
about what's
worried
going on
about
in
you.
your life, or
I
blah blah.
love
And it's
you.
like, okay, so you want to support me in my relationship space of connecting with people. It's like, there are other great
Yeah.
ways you can ask me about that.
Here's how
How
you
are
can
things
support me.
going in this part of your life? Do you feel good about X, Y, Z? These are ways that are demonstrating to me that you're curious and supportive. The way that you asked me is a coming from a place of judgment of not meeting a certain demand of yours. And that's the thing that I'm responding to. Not your support.
No.
I'm responding to the fact that you have cast shame on me because I haven't met a certain criteria that you've imagined for me
Mm-hmm.
yet. And you're probing into something that is personal in a space that I don't want to participate with you in this moment right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, super dark void. It's a lot like asking why a racist or sexist joke is funny to the person saying it, and you can shut it down. That's one of my favorite responses to racist or sexist jokes is going, I don't get it. And then they have to
What's so funny
explain
about
it.
that?
And it's so deeply uncomfortable. Another way that you can deal with that is if you know the question is coming, you can get in there preemptively before the event even happens.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my mom, my dad, and my partner's mom all helping out after I have my baby. I am planning on sending an email to everybody, saying these are the vaccines you need to get to
Mm.
be around a newborn, and also just to let everybody know I'm going to be in a physically and emotionally vulnerable place. I am not going to tolerate jokes and comments about my body.
Mm.
I'm just not going to do it. I've had body image issues in the past, and it is not something I want to deal with, and it is off the table. My partner will be enforcing this. Because I know my family is the kind of family where we joke about stuff and we give each other shit, but there does come a point where it's not funny anymore to me, it's just hurtful. So what's the point of making a joke if everybody isn't laughing? So you can have a conversation with your mom, with your dad, with your cousin, with your grandma, whoever beforehand, and go, just so you know, talking about this is really uncomfortable for me right now. I would appreciate it if you didn't bring it up. I'd love to talk with you about these other things.
Yeah.
Another way to tackle it.
Yeah. Well, I'm Group's Zero is bringing up great points about like our parents' ability to process certain stuff. So sometimes having these conversations is a tool. It's a tool that requires a lot of work and a lot of exercise, and large portions of our population don't bother working out that muscle. Maybe they weren't even aware of that muscle. So, for example, my dad is a great guy, but I really feel for him because I can see that he does not have the verbal tools to articulate what is emotionally happening for him. So there's one time that he was coming out and visiting, and I could tell that there was something wrong. And he was like, I just feel off. And I was like, okay. And I was watching him process it. Like, and the thing was, in that moment, I became acutely aware that in his head, he's like, the only words that I can put to this is I'm off, I'm sad, upset. I can't tell what it is about my day or myself or this morning or a series of things that have caused this emotion. I just feel this emotion. And not only do I just feel this emotion, I feel this emotion that is just like a generalized word which covers 5,000 other things.
Bad.
Right. I feel bad.
It's bad.
I feel bad. And so when I have a lot of conversations with him, I see that he is operating from that space and he wants to learn. I've had to coach my dad and my stepmom through a lot of their relationship troubles of just being like, okay, I just listened to both of you speak. I'm going to translate to you what he's trying to say, and then I'm going to translate back to you what she's trying to say. And this is where you're missing each other's points, and this is where you two are connecting, and this is where the conflict is. Just acting as sort of like a middle ground translator. But that made me very aware of just like, oh my God, my dad, despite all of his best efforts, and my dad is like, I'm lucky how he's like a wonderful, supportive person that is open to engaging. But he does not have those tools, and he's not going to gain those tools anytime soon.
This shit does not come naturally to most people. The things that we're breaking down here and we're talking about, we're only able to talk about it because we have spent the last 10, 15, 20 years figuring out what are my feelings, where are they coming from, how do I describe them to somebody, and what's an appropriate way in which to do that? That takes time.
I'm going to add another layer to that. Which part am I responsible for? That's a big thing, is like people these days in so many ways, they have a feeling and they don't want to be responsible for it. And so you're responsible for making me have that feeling, which is a lot of ways that people handle insecurity and jealousy.
Because it's a lot easier to put the blame on somebody else because then it's out of your control.
Because you're the stimulus and I am powerless.
Right. But if it's coming from me, that means I have to do something if I want it to change, which is hard.
I want to Eurorex. I find that some of these issues are generational social constructs, and we push them on our kids subconsciously. We absolutely do.
Absolutely.
I find myself doing with some of the standards I had to deal with growing up in the 90s. I do try and help them find a space socially. Well, listen, I mean, one of the big things that our generation right now has an advantage on is that people are even talking about these things. Holy cow, did none of these conversations ever happen about anything.
Who the fuck spoke about a boundary in 1992?
You went to your fucking family event because they're family.
And you
hugged your fucking uncle no matter what happened because...
You kissed your goddamn grandma. She's going to die soon.
Goddamn grandma, and that was it. And everyone shut up. And nobody gave our parents' generation a chance to speak.
No one gave them permission. No one gave them the tools with which they could even
Yeah.
do it.
And every generation that is coming is getting more and more permission to speak about the space that they're in and have that space be acknowledged.
I can't wait until like in 30 years. I can't wait to find out what I'm going to be so fucking backwards on. And where I'm going to just completely be out of my element and have to learn some new shit really quickly.
We're going to be closed-minded old people.
We are.
someday.
Eventually we are. We are. And by the way, Big J Dub 91, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very excited.
Should we keep going? I mean, I got more family stuff. We haven't even dived into friends at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot with family.
Well, I think one thing that is very important that comes up a lot with family time
This one?
is, well, I think these two go
Yeah.
together.
Not kick it off.
If you have made a life choice, which basically boils down to if something about who you are as a person is not what your parents wanted and not what they respect. If you are disappointing them and they have expressed in any way, I just wish you were different. If your gender identity, if your sexual orientation, if the work that you've gotten involved in, any of your life choices, that feeling that disapproval and that disappointment, especially around the holidays, I think that is a really big point of contention for a lot of people.
Well, a lot of it boils down to each of us assess value differently. What makes somebody successful? There's a lot of people that have like more traditional family values that will say you're successful because you got married at a certain point and had kids or got a house or ... Or somebody might say, oh, you're valuable because you made a lot of money and you have financial security.
Or because you have one of these 5 specific jobs that I respect and
Right.
I'm willing to respect.
Right. What do we do with that when our values are different than our parents? And I think it comes back to the 3 things we talked about before, which is like talking it out, taking time outs, or cutting the cord. One, you have to talk it out, which is communicating to your parents. I understand that this is your set of values, but the thing that makes me the most excited in my life and how I determine my value is actually X, Y, and Z. Give them a chance to say, you're welcome to jump on my team. And but I'm actually measuring my life this way. And they'd be like, well, if you're not financially stable, you're going to run into all this. I understand. I understand. Guess what? There's no avoiding tough things in life. Like all of their I'm worried that you're going to X, Y, Z. It's like, guess what? Secure jobs crumble. Businesses collapse. Your 401k can disappear.
Even if you do everything it could all be yanked out from under you at any moment.
In our healthcare system. Do you know what I mean? So when they're talking about things, this is like me getting hyped now. When they're talking about well, you got to do all these things and that's the way to get life right. It's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If there was a way to get life right, don't you think everybody would just be doing that thing?
Nobody who's financially insecure is unaware of
COVID.
how difficult it is. No one.
Yeah.
We know.
We know.
We all know
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, there's an important decision to be made there, which is how much harm is being caused. And is that amount of harm acceptable to me? Because when we say cutting the cord, we mean either severely
That's step
content.
3 though. There's the middle
Sure.
step of let's
That's-
just take some time.
Yeah. But
I need to breathe.
You can have the conversation to address it, and then if that's not respected, you can start to lower your amount of contact. And if you're still experiencing the same kinds of harm, you can cut people off.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that should be done without serious consideration. But again, you don't owe your parents anything. You don't owe your parents a specific choice or lifestyle or type of partner, a vision of the life they were imagining for you. They were setting up expectations before you even came on the scene, and that's not fair to you.
Mm.
It's not.
I will say, and this again, it comes down to your personality type and how you handle things too. I'm very direct. Uh, and I had a conversation with my stepdad. My stepdad in his later years became very religious. I'm not. And I'm also a person that is like, hey, everybody, yeah, you do you. Go do your thing. Don't care. As long as you don't bring it to my doorstep.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, love that you found religion. I think it's really great for you and my mom. Knock your socks off. But I swear to God, if you ever try to like push it on me, I'm going to make the situation so awful that you're never going to do it again. My thing was just like, I'm putting up the wall. If you cross into my territory, there's going to be a shock and awe campaign that is going to make you go, I'm never going to push Peter's boundary again.
Here are the consequences.
Here are the
For
consequences.
this choice.
I told him again. And, you know, and what was funny about it was like he brought it up in a very casual conversation, totally unnecessary. I was actually having a great time chatting with him about this book called Paradox: The 9 Greatest Enigmas in Physics. That's the person that I am. And I was like, I thought you would love to read it. And he's like, I've got a good book that you should read. And I was like, is it the Bible?
Was it the Bible?
And he said, yeah. And I was like, here it comes. I was like, I read it. I laid into him about a myriad of things in the Bible. Huge. And he was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. And I was like, listen, man, I'm totally happy to coexist in this space. Enjoy your thing.
Yeah. And
just don't push it on me.
And sometimes that is the boundary that needs to be drawn. Like, I love you and I like spending time with you, but my enjoyment spending time with you ends when we talk about these things because we fundamentally disagree. This can also have to do a lot with, you know, political leanings, with general philosophies. A lot of the time we enjoy being around our family members until politics come up, and then it devolves into a fucking shit show. And you are allowed to say, I'm not willing to engage with you about that. I love you and I want to enjoy my time with you as much as possible, and that will stop us from doing that. So if you bring it up, I will walk away. I will go get some ice cream. I will go up to a part of the house you don't like. I will light up a joint right in front of you. Like, whatever it is, you are not under obligation to be engaged in that conversation.
Yeah. I want to address your Rex brought up, you do owe your parents respect to your chores. Sorry, I'm trying to get my kids to do better.
See, I think those two things can be separated.
Yeah.
Because as a person living in a common space with other people, you do owe it to the group to
do your part.
Chores and be part of that community and contribute to that household. Absolutely. I would argue that you do not automatically owe your parents respect, especially if they don't show you any respect.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of like fun grades. I mean, like, listen,
and people think of respect as different things, you know, like respect is they have to follow the rules. I was like, okay,
yeah,
absolutely. If you pay the bills, this is your house. Also, the rules are there to keep kids safe. It is your responsibility to keep them safe. But respect is a very tricky thing that I would love to go into another day.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when our mission, raising kids, is to help them prepare to be in the world.
Yeah.
And so the idea of like, you do your chores. Well, you don't do them so that I'm not mad at you.
No.
That's not why we do chores. We do chores because our space needs to be taken care of. And we all chip in, and that is a responsibility that we have growing up in the space. And you want to take care of that responsibility because that is a sign of respect to the people around you.
Yes.
That that you don't want to make their life harder.
And to be fair, that is a more complicated
Yeah, that's a lot.
conversation
Yeah,
that
the kids are
maybe
not
doesn't
gonna.
need to take place
Right.
when they're 3, right?
Right, but you
you
do.
suit it to their processing power.
Yeah, but I think that is a part of the process. So many of us have grown up in the space of like, do this because I said so,
Right.
and I'm the ultimate authority.
Right.
And I'm more of the ilk of, especially when it comes to prepping kids for the world, of like, the reason why you should do this is because of like these underlying reasons that are actually good for you. I want you to understand your cause and effect on a space and the reality and the people around you. So
you don't exist in a vacuum.
you don't exist in a vacuum.
Nobody
So
does.
like, you don't do your chores, well, there are consequences to that.
Yeah.
Your room is messy. Your mom that works so hard to do all of these different things, who gets stressed when these spaces are like this, you're adding to her stress by like not doing your part in this space. It's not just a I told you to do a thing. It's like, I'm going to actually give you the power to go, oh man, you affect the world around you. You know.
Yeah, I think the the because I said so phase
not
is
easy. It's
slowly
not easy.
dying and coming to an end.
Yeah. And some days we're tired.
Right. And again, I say this all with the luxury of still having my child inside me
Yeah.
and not having to actually deal with the realities of day-to-day parenting. And I'm sure that there will be many days where I am not being the best parent that I want to be. And sometimes it will be, you know what? Because we need to get it done, and,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about it fucking later.
Yeah, that
Shut
happens
up.
too. That super
I'm
happens.
sure I'll have those days.
Absolutely.
This is, ideally what we aspire to, right? We can talk about hopes and aspirations and also accept that sometimes we're tired and we're not being our best selves.
I have caught myself, I've in a response yelled, realized how terrifying it was that I yelled, and then totally had to go, okay, I gotta back that trade up. My response to the situation was not appropriate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that I could have handled that, and then you can get to have that debrief of like, hey, listen, that yell came from me being
Yeah.
on my end of my rope.
I take responsibility.
I take
for
responsibility.
it. Also demonstrating that
You make mistakes.
you make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you acknowledge them and you apologize. I
Yeah.
think that's a way to earn your kids' respect.
Absolutely.
Is acknowledging when you do something wrong.
All right.
We all do.
We got to move into friends.
Friends.
Oh my God.
Oh.
So, friends, boundaries with friends.
Fucking Tony from high school that you
fucking
hate that
Tony.
wants to get wasted every fucking Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. We have, as people, trouble with boundaries with friends. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the stakes in some ways feel low.
Mm.
Lower than the other, like work, you might lose your job,
Intimate
relationship,
partnerships, you might lose your partner.
Family,
it's
their
gonna blow up in
family.
your face. But friends are just friends. I also think there is no template with which to break up with friends, with which to have conversations like, I don't know if this friendship is working. What can we do to change that? Right? It's either you're friends with this person or you're not.
Yeah. Bonsai Bullfrog, great question, which is actually what we're diving into.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with friends who ghost you or only contact you when they need something? So what we're talking about is it's possible not to respect your own boundaries. If you are, there's a situation where you're like, I really want to be this person's friend, but I'm going to give you the reality of the situation and what you're describing. They are ghosting you. And they are treating you poorly. You now are in the position where you go, oh, I get to decide whether I want to deal with that or not. If when they reach out to you later on down the road and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I'll hang out again, you're saying, hey, totally okay to ghost me.
Yeah. That
now-
behavior is acceptable.
Now, I know, and we all have this happen, you wish it wasn't true. Big proponent of the reality, though, it is. this person, like, and that's part of the reason why I think like people, we always have this thing of like the potential. My friends could do better, or there's reasons why they're ghosting me, or they're super busy, or whatever myriad of reasons like people want to give. Um, you're not obligated to do anything, which is like if a person reaches out to you out of the blue, you don't have to text back.
Yeah, you don't.
If you want to, if you want to,
If you want to be petty,
like-
you can ghost them right back.
no, but it's not about ghosting somebody back.
It-
I'll tell, like, and this is something I've heard in other people as they age. You sort of like start having less and less friends that are like acquaintances and stuff, and your friendships become deeper and longer lasting, but there's a lot less of them. And part of that reason is you start to understand that I want to only be around people that are like a plus in my life, which meant I went through a culling with my friends in my like early 30s that was just, we're not hanging out, not because you did anything wrong, just simply because it's not that fun.
Yeah.
I'm having fun because I have fun, not because you're making the situation fun.
You are not making.
You're not
it
making the
funner.
situation more fun. And in fact, I could use that time to spend time with myself, spend time with other friends that I'm more close with, develop other hobbies,
Working on projects.
working
that are
on
important
projects
to
that are
you.
important to me. You don't
Time
have
becomes
to.
more and more valuable
Yeah.
as you get older.
Right. And so if you've got a person that like, holy shit, every time you try to hang out, they're like, oh, blah, 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 and they're flimsy or they cancel on you last minute, stop trying to hang out with that person. It's going to feel weird for a little bit, and then it's going to stop feeling weird, and you're going to feel great that you don't have to. So basically, in each of these situations, somebody's losing, and every time it's you. And that
That's not okay.
sucks. They don't
not
make
okay.
any sacrifices. They don't put any effort into the friendship.
And, once in a while, whatever. Or especially if they have the mental capacity to go, I'm really sorry, I'm going through a hard time right now. Is it okay if I reach out again when I'm feeling better? Just those two sentences changes the entire context. But I think there are a lot of people that get to adulthood that realize they have these long-standing relationships that are draining, and that's all they are. All relationships are a little bit of give and take, right? And not to say that they're transactional, which some relationships are, and that's okay. But generally speaking, you want to feel like someone is bringing to the table what you are willing to bring to the table.
Oh my God. I got a gardening metaphor for this.
Give it to me.
Got this from my wife. Okay. She didn't say this thing about friendship, but she taught me this about gardening. When you're gardening, you cut off the dead leaves.
Yes.
And the reason why is because if you don't cut off the dead leaves, the nutrients and the energy that is coming up through the plant is going to keep trying to resurrect this dead leaf.
Ooh.
And it's going to suck the energy away from the rest of the plant.
Who's your dead leaf?
You cut off the dead leaf, new buds grow from that thing that are vibrant and healthy and don't require so much maintenance. If you've got a friend that is insanely high maintenance, they are sucking the energy away from all of your other friendships and your life.
And
Cut those dead leaves.
They're demanding an excess level of support and never offering you
Oh, no.
support in return, which
Yeah.
happens a lot.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. It's okay to need things from your friends sometimes. It's okay to be in a vulnerable position where in that moment you can't give back what you're asking of them. But it's important to remember that when you are okay again, that you do offer that kind of support. And these long-term friendships, we can see the pattern. You can see the pattern. You know when someone texts you, do you get a good feeling or a bad feeling?
Yeah.
To put it in super simple terms, if every time you hear from somebody, you get a bad feeling, why the fuck do you want that leaf on your plant?
There's also something to be mindful of, and you can sort of like assess this on your own of like what your scale of tolerance is. Mine is low, which is like the pressures we put on friends to like we define friendships in a certain way, and they're like, we are friends because you show up and do XYZ things when I need you to do them. I'm so low maintenance that like when I had good friends or family that were like, we can't come to your wedding, I was like, oh, fine, yeah, that's good. What are you like tired or like? I don't care. Actually, don't even care what your excuse is. Yeah, I super support you not coming to my wedding. I didn't put on any of my friends the like, if you don't come to my wedding, I don't know if we can be friends anymore,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And people do that
All the time.
all the time. They do it, and some people, depending on the person, will put it on the smallest of things. You didn't text me back within an hour. You weren't at my birthday party, or my engagement, or my Chippendale, or Jack and Jill, or the 5 fucking parties that lead up to a wedding.
And just to be clear, if you do feel unsupported by a friend, it's okay to bring it up in the context of, this is how I feel, and not like, you didn't do this, but like, when you made that choice, it made me feel this way, which is basically an offer of, does this matter to you? Would you like to change this feeling? Is there some way in which like you can show me the connection and support that I've come to expect from our friendship in another way? Right? So there's like that kind of that fine line between
The way that you phrase things is super
oh
important.
my God, yeah. And
I wish you could have been there.
Yeah. And this is why I really intensely detest people who are just total jerks all the time and say, I'm just being honest. I'm calling it like it is. I'm being honest. Because you know what? There are ways, so many ways to be honest and also be kind and be an effective communicator where you're actually looking to solve the problem rather than just make people upset.
Bam.
Context matters.
Context super matters. What else we have in here?
Friendship breakups.
Friendship breakups.
Whew.
Why don't they happen?
Again,
Do they need to happen?
yes.
Well, I, in terms of speaking about like a specific breakup conversation of like, let's part ways and never speak again.
So I think sometimes it is necessary.
Sometimes it is necessary, yeah.
I recently saw this absolutely delightful movie called The Banshees of Inisherin. And the entire movie is based on this teeny tiny Irish island. And there are these 2 dudes, and they've been friends for decades. They hang out at the pub every fucking day. That's what they do. And one day, one of them says, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. And it sets off an incredibly chaotic chain of events. But the entire movie centered around this friend breakup. And friend breakup because friend 1 felt like he had really outgrown friend 2 and wasn't getting anything from that friendship anymore.
Which is enough.
Which is enough. And friend 2 just didn't fucking get it and kept violating friend 1's boundaries when he said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hang out. He kept trying to find ways to work his way back in. So, but that's kind of like one of the first movies I've seen that even addresses like an end of a friendship without like some really horrible thing or betrayal happening. It's like, oh, you slept with my boyfriend or you killed my dog but sometimes friendships need to end even if there isn't some big catastrophe.
Friendships can end just because they're imbalanced.
Yes.
You can have a lot of people that are like, you don't want to be their friend. They're like, but why? I get so much out of it. And you're like, I'm sure that you do.
You do.
Yeah. I'm not getting anything out of it. This isn't working for me. And vice versa. There's people that if they're like, they don't want to hang out with me, and this isn't me like shitting on myself, but if they're like, yeah, this isn't working for me, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not. I know what you need. I am not showing up for you in that way.
Yeah, I like myself, but I also totally understand why somebody would not like me.
Yeah.
100%. I
100
get it.
I get it.
it. Yeah.
Or like somebody that's like, well, I really need you to be here at all these different things or to see all of my shows, which is a big thing in the arts community.
You are one of the few people that when you say, I have a show, I don't like want to
Because
die.
I don't invite people. If it's a bad show, I'm not going to invite people.
I know.
I acknowledge people's time.
I actually enjoy myself at your shows, which is a very uncommon situation.
Speaking of which, anyone that's in Los Angeles, A Very Die Hard Christmas opens this week on Thursday. It's a great show.
Hey.
That's my plug. But yeah, there are people, and here's the main thing. We all get to sort of set our boundaries and our standards or whatever. And then other people get to react to those things.
Yes, they do.
And vice versa. And that's it. If you've got somebody that you go, you know what? We're not on the same page. If you got a friend that's like, it's only fun if we go out drinking, and you're like, I don't really feel like drinking all the time. And they're like, well, you've got to. It's like, actually,
No, I don't.
I don't.
don't.
You should spend friendships are in like relationships, intimate relationships this way, but they're not treated this way for some reason. There's a lot of people that will invite me to game nights, and I will say no.
You're not a game night person.
I love game nights. I love game nights. There's always somebody there that takes it too seriously. And that I can't.
I don't like that.
I
energy either.
I love trivia nights. Will not go to trivia nights with people for the same reason. There are people that take it too seriously. I don't take it seriously. It's not so fun to me. I do impromptu game nights or trivia things with people.
And by the way, it's okay to have different friends that you enjoy doing different
Yes,
activities
fucking
with.
please.
There are some people that I would love to go mini golfing with because I really like talking to them. And that is the core of our friendship, is just shooting the shit where we don't really have to focus. But somebody that was really competitive, I would never want to go mini golfing with them because it would actually upset them if something wasn't going the way they wanted to, and that's not the energy I want to have around. On the other hand, if I needed somebody to push me, so if I needed somebody to like physically train with and someone to like motivate me to go further, that's the friend I would call. We don't need to have this expectation on our friends and on our partners that they are supposed to meet every need and desire we have from a friendship.
How's that? Here, talk closer to your mic.
I will talk closer to my mic. Thank
How's
you.
that? That was happening in our thing yesterday. I know it's a different. Here, I can scooch it towards
I
your
got it.
so your belly. Yeah, yeah. There are definitely different tiers of friendship.
Yes.
God, what was I gonna say? Oh, there's also, and we all get to say our piece to our friends, and then again let them react. I love playing volleyball, and my best friend and I are like very serious competitive volleyball players. So when we play, the reason why we're playing is because we love the challenge of like pushing ourselves to this extreme. Then I would have different friends or partners that were not experienced volleyball players that'd be like, "Hey, I would love to have you come out sometime," and I would say no. I would say, if we do like a backyardy kind of volleyball day where it doesn't matter, maybe you can come to that one. But the reason why I'm not inviting you is because it means XYZ to me. And I get fun because of XYZ. And if it's going to be this other experience, if you want to just like casually play drunken volleyball as if we are a family doing a backyard barbecue, that's a totally different thing that I'm signing up for.
And I actually think that that is a way of acknowledging people where they are.
Yeah.
And part of like being a good friend and a good like host of an event. I would never want to invite somebody to something that they would not enjoy, or that they would feel awkward about because they're not matching the energy around them. Part of curating a group is understanding the different personalities and the different desires in that group. So I think you would have been a bad friend if you had let them come to that volleyball game with them not knowing the dynamic they were walking into.
I like Super Dark said, Peter ultra serious in volleyball, doesn't give a fuck about board games. I actually really love board games. I just don't take them seriously, but I've caused so many fights at board game nights that like I'm aware. I'll give you a very quick story. A friend that I love, his name is Sean. He does board game nights. He's one of the few people that I'll go. He had a night where people were playing Settlers of Catan. And this person brought them over. He brought his board games over in a case. It was like a very serious board game night player. And I told everybody, I'm going to play like Donald Trump, which meant I would have no plan. My strategy would be hidden even from myself. I would make a series of random decisions. And guess what? I won.
I just want to cause as much chaos as possible.
Yeah, and the reason why I won was because I was just making random decisions, again, random to even me, and then I saw a path to winning, connected those dots in the very last minute, sunk the victory. This person flipped over the board, lost their shit, gathered all the pieces, yelled at everybody, and stormed out of the space.
See, I would love to witness that drama and then never stop making fun of that person as long as I live.
But I don't. But that was a situation where I was like, I'm actually just here for the fun. I played this board game again. Same person. Sean invited to another board game night with other serious players, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna remind you of the last incident. Are there anybody like this there?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, I'll come." We played this game called Cthulhu. Like the Death of Cthulhu or something. What an insane game. And I took on the character of Rasputin, and my power was that I was immortal and I couldn't die, and I went fucking bananas. And it super worked for the strategy, but like when I play games, I'm such like a rogue chaos figure that if there's someone that's taking it seriously, and my strategy is very good, but it's not a like I'm not a general on the field dictating all the things that are going to happen. I'm just doing the dance.
Wild card, bitches.
Wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's not called Cthulhu. It's
my
like
alignment is always chaotic.
Yeah, my alignment is very chaotic.
Citrix asks, do you find yourself having different personas with different friend groups, or do you think you act the same all around? I do think that different friends bring out different qualities. I like you are one of the friendships I have that one of the foundations of our friendship is having these very deep and thoughtful conversations. And so my deep and thoughtful side comes out when I'm around you. It's the same thing I have with some other friends, that more of that, like, you know, sort of contemplative, really delving deep into things. And when I go out with my friends that just want to dance and have a good time, it doesn't mean that part of me is gone, that I don't have any deep thoughts anymore. But sometimes I don't want to fucking talk about deep stuff and I just want to dance. So then to someone who doesn't know me, it might seem like there's a very different persona, but all humans are incredibly and beautifully multifaceted.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the beginning and the end. And I think it is a wonderful thing to have different friends that bring out different sides of you.
Yeah. I don't think there's any avoiding that either. I'm pretty similar around most people. But I do have those. Oh, there was a commercial break.
There's commercials on this?
Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
I'm a newbie. Thank you for your patience.
This is the beach house. We're still doing all the things.
Man.
We're talking about being different around different people. I definitely see different sides of myself coming out, but I do tend to act weirdly the same around a lot of people in situations that it doesn't call for it.
Yeah, I understand. That I understand.
I don't know if it's good.
I mean,
it doesn't really matter though, because it's a choice it's a strategy I've chosen.
I think certain parts of me come out no matter who I'm with, And one of those things are, I am willing to share personal things about myself upon being asked to anyone.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to hide who I am or the things that are important to me. And to some people, that's awesome. And to some people, it's like really abrasive and startling.
Yeah.
But my general policy is, well, if I tell you who I am right away, then both of us can save time if that's not somebody you want to be around.
I'll admit to this, and I don't know if Allison is listening. I am way more sarcastic around my wife than I am around anybody else. It's not a good thing. It's just so funny to me. And we made in our vows that comedy comes first. And I stuck to my vows.
It's a beautiful vow.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
We obviously
vow.
have a lot of very honest, like loving moments. But I think I give her the strangest, weirdest answers to questions that are just normal questions. Sometimes if my ADHD is firing, it'll be to the point that it's infuriating. And I know that.
I mean,
And
I think most like long-term friendships or family dynamics or couples develop sort of hey, this is a running gag that irritates
Yes.
the fuck out of you, and I'm gonna do it because it irritates you, in a playful way, not in a hurtful way.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what it is. My wife, you know how comedians go out on the road and like test their
Try out
jokes?
material.
Yeah. My wife is my dive bar
Ugh.
where I try out all my material and then I give my friends and my community the like polished version of
Yeah, she's locked in legally.
yeah.
She can't
Of
go
new
anywhere.
jokes.
You have a bad joke.
There's a lot of workshopping that goes on. But then again, I'm like, but also like she does laugh a lot other times.
Yeah.
There's some times where I'm like, oh, that wasn't necessary, and I'll rein it back.
Oh yeah, and there'll sometimes I'll
I've
call
got a
out
pretty
my
high
partner
hit ratio.
You know, he'll make like silly, sarcastic jokes, saying things that he doesn't actually believe, and I'll just be like, "That wasn't funny, and that was lazy. I don't know why you said that."
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't open with it.
yeah, I wouldn't say that around anyone else
Yeah.
ever. I some thoughts are inside thoughts.
Some thoughts are inside thoughts.
You can just keep them all to yourself.
But acknowledge what our partners are. They are the first line of all tested material.
And it's impossible.
not-
It's impossible to be. I think it's impossible to be in a long-term relationship and always show up as your best self. What a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I don't hear about the Rachel doesn't want to do the dishes version of you that you've talked about.
Oh my god! And she's here all the time.
I don't see that, Rachel.
The only time I want to
see
do
the-
dishes is at someone else's house because I want them to feel supported and I want them to feel loved. And not that I don't want my partner to feel support and loved. It's just that there's always
There's
dishes
always
at home.
dishes.
There's, like as soon as you do the dishes, there's more dishes. I don't know. It's like laundry.
We run a baking business out of this house. There are always dishes. Anyway, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you being here. Subscribe to our channel. You don't have to deal with any commercial breaks.
Yeah.
And you'll help us
that are a
fund
thing.
getting a cool intro opener. And like, I'm going to deck out this space. It's going to be cool. So subscribe. Thank you.
And thrive.
And thrive. Goodbye.